Hello friend, welcome to our channel. Today I want to share you a story about space travel. On 11th April 1970, Apollo 13 launched from Kennedy Space Center with 3 astronauts heading to the moon. Despite confidence in this mission success, they were unaware their dream of landing on the moon would not be realized. When the spacecraft was about 33,000 kilometers away from the Earth, they heard a loud bang. Suddenly, a huge bang that shocked the entire spacecraft. Within a few seconds, the warning lights and alarm started going on. One oxygen tank burst, while the other leaked rapidly during a space mission. NASA's team thought it was an instrument malfunction, but astronauts saw the air leaking through the window. On the other hand, they see that because of the blast, the spacecraft had shifted from its path. It was going kilometers away from the Earth every second. Within a few hours, the astronauts in Apollo 13 were so far from the Earth that it became a new record. To date, no human has gone so far from the Earth as these 3 astronauts did during the Apollo 13 mission. Now, the challenging Apollo 13 mission prioritized the safe return to the Earth over landing on the moon. Carbon dioxide levels in the module are rising. The crew were beginning to suffer. It was a dire state. Let's go back in history before starting. In 1961, US President John F. Kennedy promised the world that
before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
this promise should be seen in the context of the Cold War. At that time, USA and the Soviet Union were engaged in a race, a space race. Who will be the leader of the field of technology? In 1969, both Apollo 11 and Apollo 12 missions were successful. Astronauts did not only step on the moon but also safely returned to the Earth. Kennedy's promise was fulfilled, but it had a side effect. Right after it, the people's and government interest on the space mission decreased drastically. It obvious that people were excited to see a man step on the moon for the first time, but people can't be so excited for the second, third, and fourth time. The interest in the moon is fading fast. People believe that Apollo 13 also will just be another routine flight. For this reason, USA government cut NASA's budget and many future missions that were planned for the new few years, like Apollo 20, were cancelled. That's why the Apollo 13 mission came at a crucial time in the story of space travel. Let's discuss spacecraft as well before beginning our story. The design of Apollo 13 spacecraft was similar to that the previous space mission. Mainly, there were 4 main components: command module, service module, lunar module, and launch escape system. All 3 astronauts were seated in the command module, which was the main part of the spacecraft, but it was a small part. The command module is just this cone shape, which is only 11 feet long and has a diameter of 13 feet. Also, the instrument panels, navigation gear, radios, life support system, and small engine were all in this command module. The second most important part was the service module, which had most of the oxygen tanks, some more engines too, and fuel cell to generate electricity. The Command and Service Module is often collectively called the Command and Service Module, or CSM in a short form. They are connected during the entire mission until the astronaut returns to the Earth, and only during the entry to the Earth they are separated from each other. And the third part was Lunar Module, which was actually supposed to land on the moon, which was designed for only 2 astronauts. One astronaut remained in a CSM part for control. And once the work on the moon was over, it was supposed to get attached to the CSM module once again. The fourth part, launch escape system, alias in short form, was not so important for the mission, but it protected the astronaut for an accident during the launch. If there is an accident during the rocket launch, it safely ejects the astronaut and take away from the accident. But if everything goes well in the launch, then the alias is not needed, so it ejects. On 11th April 1970, since Apollo 13 launched safely and successfully, so the alias part was already ejected on the Earth's surface. 3 astronauts were on the spacecraft: Commander Jim Lovell, the pilot of the lunar module, Fred Hayes, and the third pilot of the command module, Jack Swigert. Coincidentally, according to the original plan, none of these 3 were chosen for this mission. Originally, the 3 different astronauts were chosen for this mission, but they all had different problems, because of which they were not able to participate in this mission. Popularity about this mission. To see this rocket launch, there were around 2 million people on the ground. This was a small number compared to the Apollo 11 previous year that had 7 million people for the rocket launch. NASA realized how quickly people lost their interest in the space exploration, but nobody realized that the Apollo 13 gonna be a headline of news. Let's go back in a story. This spacecraft took off smoothly toward its destination. It was supposed to take 3 days for them to reach the moon. NASA's team and astronauts had regular conversation. It proved that everything was going right. During the first 2 days, there were no problems in this mission. At 46 hours 43 minutes of this mission, the communicator on duty at that time said that the spacecraft was in a good condition, and they were bored sitting there. The third day of the mission, 13 April, they have to do some tests on the lunar module. They have to do a broadcast for the television, where they will use the camera to show the entire of the command module and service module to the world. But now the audience interest in this was so low that no television network saw this broadcast at that time. Commander Lovell's wife went to a VIP section of this mission control to watch this broadcast. About 6.5 minutes after the end of the TV broadcast, then the flight control of the ground asked astronauts to check the oxygen level. There was nothing unusual in this. It was just a routine check of this oxygen tank in the service module. While this check was being done, suddenly a huge explosion occurred. As I told you at the beginning of the video, the astronauts in the spacecraft were largely in shock. Commander Robel contacted Mission Control and said, "Houston, we have had a problem." It turned out that one tank of oxygen was completely empty, and the oxygen level in the other tank was going down rapidly. Mission Control on the ground first thought that the instrument must be showing the wrong data, but that was wrong. Everyone needs to take action urgently if they want to save the lives of the astronaut. Then this incident, TV channels that had called this boring and were not showing it on this news, but made this the news headline suddenly now.
Is in serious jeopardy this morning and is not going to make a moon landing.
In this oxygen was stored in liquid form. There was a heater at the center which converted the liquid oxygen into gas. on Apollo 13, there were two such tanks in the service module. The tank number 2 was originally installed in Apollo 10, but it was removed from there for modification. Accident happened with it. It accidentally fell down during repair and was damaged. The tube inside it was damaged, but no one saw it during the inspection while testing it. They noticed that the tank would not be completely empty. To get rid of the remaining oxygen, heaters were used to boil it completely. Later, it was found that the thermometer inside it could show a maximum temperature of 30 degrees Celsius. But when the heater was used to heat the oxygen in the tank, the temperature would reach a high as 538 degrees Celsius. No one noticed this extreme heating because it did not register in the thermometer. Due to this extreme heating, this insulation of the electrical wires in the tank were damaged. Before the mission, NASA's managers and engineers had approved the tank after a thorough investigation, but they were unable to see the internal damage. During the routine check of the tank on the third day, due to those electric wires, there was a spark and the tank exploded. But astronauts survived because it was only chance that the tank was attached to the outside of the spacecraft. If it been attached inside the spacecraft and exposed there, then all the astronauts would have been killed instantly. The explosion occurred outside and only a 13-foot panel was damaged in the service module. What else was damaged in the spacecraft? The astronauts were not sure. Now everyone had to take an important decision. Which way could they take to return to the Earth? The fastest way to return of the Earth was to rotate the spacecraft. But if they do this, the main engine of the service module had to be started. The main engine was located near of the blast in the CSM module. No one knew whether the engine was damaged or not. The second way to return to the Earth was to go toward of the Moon and circle around the Moon to return to the Earth. For this, the engines of the service module will not be required, but the risk was that it would take 4 to 5 days to return to the Earth. Did the astronaut have enough oxygen and water left? NASA's flight director chose the second option. To take the long way back, astronauts were told to shut down the CSM module immediately, and while returning, they were told to use lunar module as a lifeboat. Thought this decision was safe option, but it had several problems. The lunar module was designed in such a way that only 2 astronauts could sit in it for about 20 hours because, as I told, its original purpose was to land on the Moon only and get attached to the CSM module again. But now it was accepted that these 3 people would sit in the lunar module for 4 to 5 days. The engines of the lunar module were not designed in a way that they could be fired repeatedly. To a large extent, this was also risky. To conserve supplies and energy, the astronauts were told to shut down all non-essential systems in the spacecraft, including the heaters that were installed. It was very important to save electricity as per their plan. The astronauts sat in the lunar module, and for the first time, the engines of the lunar module were fired. When the engine is started, it's called a burn. So they do this burn to get a new path. With the help of this burn, they reach the other side of the Moon. the far side of the moon, they become the first human in the world to go so far from the Earth, and this record remains unbeatable even now. At their further point, they were 4,000 kilometers away from the Earth. If they stay on this path, they could be reached on the Earth about 153 hours after launch. But this time was very risky. If they reach the Earth after so long, they only 1 hour of supplies, food, water, and oxygen will remain for the astronaut. NASA team on the ground believe that this margin is very narrow. That's why the astronauts were told to burn the lunar module engine for the second time. The engineers in the mission's control had done many calculations to find out whether the lunar module engines will be able or not to handle the second burn or not. This calculation proved correct. When the second burn is done, the flight time of 153 hours was reduced to 143 hours, an 11-hour margin of survival. Before the astronaut could relax, another problem arose. The high concentrate of carbon dioxide in spaceship, a part of oxygen tank. There are canisters of lithium hydroxide to remove carbon dioxide. When astronauts breathe in oxygen, they breathe out carbon dioxide. If that carbon dioxide is not removed, which can be problematic. That's why canisters of lithium hydroxide are used so that carbon dioxide react with it and become lithium carbonate. But the problem here was that the canister of lithium hydroxide in the lunar module were enough for only 2 people to survive 2 days. But here there were 3 people who want to survive 4 days. The good thing here was that there were some canisters in the command module too, but their filter was square and the one in lunar module had a circle shape. The expert on the ground had 24 hours to solve this problem. Astronauts from the spacecraft communicated to tell them about all things present around them. They had only plastic bag, cardboard, some sweet horse, some duct tape. They want to create something that could be the solution of this problem. After a few hours of experiment, they have a contraption of make this work. After giving step-by-step instruction, a new device was created with the things present here, which the level carbon dioxide decreased again. Kamal Lowell in his book Last Moon stated that the contraption was not very good, but it worked. The things they made like this. In this entire rescue mission, even the smallest details were taken care of. Astronauts were instructed not to drink more than 200 ml of water in a day, because if they drink more water, they will need to urinate, and in this way, the quality of urine could change the direction of the spaceship. That's why they need to survive by drinking so little water. These 3 astronauts lost 14 kg of weight in total. And 1 astronaut has got a urinary tract infection. After 4 days, when Apollo 13 spacecraft reached Earth, astronauts realized that they need to burn once more. In their calculation, they hadn't taken into account cooling vapor present in the spacecraft. This caused the spacecraft off their track also. Commander Lovell carried out another burn of the lunar module, which bring a spacecraft back on the track. Thankfully, the spacecraft could withstand the third burn too. The whole world was holding their breath and watching the news channels and were waiting for the astronaut to return to Earth. The family members and friends of the astronaut were watching this play out together. Now, the biggest question was that when this broken spacecraft try enter the Earth's atmosphere, will the spacecraft be about sustainable to hit impact? Will the astronaut be able to survive? For this part, the astronaut had to turn to the command module because only the command module was made for re-entry on the Earth. As soon as the command module entered the Earth's atmosphere, there was a communication blackout. Due to ionization of the air, the radio waves get blocked and communication cannot be done between the NASA's team present on the ground and the astronaut in the spacecraft. Usually this communication blackout is for 2 or 3 minutes only. It was accepted that communication blackout here would be for a maximum of 3 minutes. But 3 minutes were over. There was no answer from their other side. 10 seconds passed. 30 seconds passed. Then 60 seconds passed. Even after 4 minutes, there was no communication from the spacecraft. Could the astronaut survive or not? 4 minutes and 27 seconds later, finally communication was received from the other side. The people watching it on television could finally breathe again. All 3 astronauts survived. The parachute was deployed in the command module and it slowly fell into the Pacific Ocean. The 3 astronauts returned home safely. Although these missions failed, none of the 3 astronauts set foot on the moon, but still this Apollo 13 mission made its mark on the page of history, showing the historical rescue mission of the Apollo 13 and the brave of the astronaut. After the investigation of this incident, many safety measures are adopted by NASA, so that there could be no such accident in future missions. Then after Apollo 13, Apollo 14, 15, 16 and 17, all these missions were successful. On 7 December 1972, Apollo 17 was the last mission by NASA under the Apollo program. The astronauts in this mission spent 3 days on the surface of the moon, and this was the last time until today. From this video, we can learn about teamwork, power of teamwork, communication, leadership, and hope. I always told you about the hope from my videos because hope is the most encouraging power to do anything in any situation. If you want to know about Apollo 11 mission, when human went to the moon, you will get answer this question in my next video. In that video, I discussed Neil Armstrong mission. Thank you for watching video until the end. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our channel and hit the bell icon for more videos. Share your ideas with us for creating inspiring content. Keep learning and keep smiling. Take care. See you in next video.